What is too many Frankfurters to have from a pack in one sitting?
There's got to be some context with this. Are you having? Is this like? Have you not had much to eat? Have you? Is this like a snack or is this a main meal? You need to kind of clarify to me the context around this, because just on its own is too simplistic for me.
I mean, so if you haven't eaten for 16 hours, but it's like going to be over of the day because of timing.
How many is it? Did you say how many were in the pack? How many is in this pack?
10 are in a pack.
I'd say about 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a decent chunk. I mean, it depends how big they are. Like, so
a standard size Frankfurters. I was having this discussion. We actually had this discussion yesterday because I had my dinner with Frankfurters, and then I was with one of my mates on FaceTime, and he just, you hit that point in a friendship where it's just out of nowhere, like you're having a pretty decent conversation, and something fucking random just happens. This was the random conversation, and we were trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, if someone was like 10 in that situation, that's a bit excessive for me. But I'm not gonna like condemn that person. I don't look down on that person. If that's the ready middle of the day and they're getting all their calories that right there, I kind of understand it from like a feral point of view. And I mean, I have been prone at times because of circumstance to just have. I remember I went for a phase, IKEA meatballs.
I don't see the hype.
I've only been a recent converter to IKEA meatballs. I'll tell you what is good though. Costco pizza.
Yeah,
Costco pizza is majestic. I had a slice the other day, and it's not my favorite pizza. It's not like the best pizza I've ever had, but it was for £1 basically. You're basically I think over £1 for a slice. That in this country, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
But to go back to the original point, like that, it's not. I don't think that's unreasonable. If you're doing that and you're also like that's in the midst of a normal eating day, then yeah, I think slightly different in it.
Yeah, no. If you'd eaten all day, like I was saying, I think you realistically, if it's like a fixed meal, you should max out at 3, max out. If you've not eaten all day and you just swallowed the whole pack, as at one stage in my life I have done.
What, in one go?
I've had a 10-pack of Frankfurters in one go. Yeah. When I was cutting, that was my meal. I had 10 Frankfurters and I'd have ketchup. That was my meal. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember once when I was young eating a whole jar, not like a massive jar, like the smaller jar of, is it El de Paso, like the brand that does the Mexican stuff over here.
You ate a whole tub of salsa?
No, jalapenos.
Oh, thank God for that. Oh, that's a lot of jalapenos.
See, I like jalapenos. Like
yeah. That
I was quite young. I would have been like 10 or 11 at the time. Because El de Paso is actually quite mild jalapeno, to be fair. It's kind of easy mode. Like, if you can't get past the El de Paso jalapeno, you might as well just not eat them, because it's like it's only going to get worse from here.
Well, this is it, and I do think that, yeah, realistically, that's the thing. But I've also got a funny story about Costco. Then we'll actually get into the show. I got my Costco card, but you know how they're quite sort of. I got it for free, basically. So you know how they're quite particular about if someone has a Costco card, like you can't just give it to your friends and all that sort of stuff. We had to convince the person at the Costco counter in Wembley that me and my mate were a gay couple. So we had to start talking about our weekends and all that sort of stuff. We started doing all that stuff. That was an interesting conversation. So it was kind of getting there, going sort of like, right, how are we going to seal this, get this all done, move this the right direction. And we started talking about our honeymoon. And my friend then decided to flip out and say that he was trying to get the hot tub ready for the house, and he wanted to buy the hot tub. I bet he went full on Alan Carr and the Traitors, losing his shit. It was an interesting situation, which I kind of struggled to hold together. But in the end, I got my Costco card. and I am now a fully fledged member of the Costco family. So I know exactly what you mean in regards to the £1 piece. I like the chicken bake as well. Chicken bake's good. But welcome to your Burnley preview. Chelsea heading up to Burnley after an international break, which sees them sitting in the top four, and Chelsea players seeming to perform quite well on the European and world stages. More specifically as well, Scotland and Ireland have an absolutely spectacular international break. And when people are saying, how can you hate the international break? This is the reason why you shouldn't hate the international break. I don't hate Scotland. I don't hate Ireland. I just think the international break was rubbish because I don't watch any of it because it's all completely pointless in my opinion. But anyway, Dan, how are you?
Yeah, it started snowing here.
It did here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's now turned into just like wet. It's not even snow, and it's not even that cold either.
No. It has turned cold. I mean, where I'm based, it has turned cold. Like it's felt like a page has been turned. I give straight red cards to people who claim they like winter as like their favorite. I think it was Jack Reeve who said he's suspicious of people who say that they're people who say they like winter, because I don't believe them. I don't believe how anyone would advocate for this weather.
What about when it's Christmas time though? So like,
I do make an exception for pre-Christmas winter. But when you actually think about it, that's actually quite a short period of time. And January.
Is it now? Would you say it's now?
Yeah, it's now. Yeah. You're like, yeah. I think this is like kind of we're into pre-Christmas. We're past bonfire night. You know, I feel like here's another point. Because there's a debate that goes on every year is like how early is too early to put up your Christmas decks. Are you more flexible on this, or are you quite like conservative and rigid that it has to be at a certain point every year?
So in our house, you've got within the space of Christmas, you've got 4 birthdays out of 5. So you got me, you got my dad, you got my 2 brothers, and you got Christmas, right? So dad is the 8th of December, I'm the 20th. My youngest brother's the 1st, and my other brother's the 3rd of January. So it's kind of a case of like we kind of set it up beginning of December as like that's our starting point because it kind of like ties into all the birthdays as well. I have been I don't normally feel Christmassy at this point of year, but I've been feeling a bit more Christmassy at home. I feel that's potentially down to I think because we got the wood burners all fixed in the house.
Nice.
So I'm kind of like, I think the wood burners are starting to go. I've got the dog sat in the basket in front of the wood burner. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, you know, like I'm feeling it. It feels good. But I'd say personally, yeah, before December 1st. It's like if the 1st of December falls on a weekend, which in this case it doesn't. It falls on a Monday, so I would argue the 30th of November is when you could put them up. Personally.
Yeah, I don't think that's too dissimilar to me. Like I'm someone who I think once you get a month out, I think you're probably in the realm where it's acceptable to start putting them up. I think anything before like the 25th of November, or if you're really into Christmas, like anything before the 20th of November, I think is maybe pushing it a bit too much for me. Like it's you're starting to look like retail. You know, you don't look like a house. So I am a little bit, you know, confused when people get so angry about Christmas decks going up though, like too early, if it's like too rigid. I know some people who, because they travel abroad quite religiously on holiday, like around the Christmas time, they end up don't putting up their Christmas decks because they're out the house, which I think's a little bit depressing. But
I mean, to be fair, like I living in Wembley and living in Chiswick, because I always came back here for Christmas. There were times I contemplated putting up Christmas stuff, but then I realised I'm not going to be there for like 2-3 weeks. So what's the point?
True.
So I get that. It's like, what's the point in spending all that money on, like, even if it's a fake tree, although we're very much a real tree family. It's like you spend all that money on that, on all the decorations. The lecky bill goes up as well. But why do it? For me, it's a waste if you're not there to see it. Then again, I am also the person who, when I was living in that flat in Chiswick, because it was a ground floor flat, I turned off all my lights and sat in the back of the flat on Halloween because I couldn't be asked to keep getting up to give kids trick or treat stuff. I was a bit of a Scrooge.
No, I don't blame you. I'm not a Halloween fan either. So
I don't mind Halloween normally, but I'm like, in this case, I was just like, I just couldn't be bothered.
full London there, like just antisocial.
Yeah, I was just like, I was like, mate, I'm watching my series, all right? I think I was watching The Penguin at that point. Was it Penguin? No, I wasn't watching The Penguin. I was watching The Departed, and I hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch The Departed. I really want to enjoy it. But then the problem was I had to keep getting up because I kept having some kid dressed as like, a vampire just rock up. If a kid like dressed up as something like a bit more outrageous, I might have been all over it. I probably enjoyed it more. I think that'd be quite funny, but it'd be bad parenting. But it'd be quite funny, and I think I know what Dan knows where my mind's going with that, which is really good because I'm not saying it on a pod because it'll only get dressed up in one way. But I think if you're a bit inventive with your Halloween costume, I'm all over it. If you're all dressed as like a vampire or like Frankenstein or just something really quite simple to do, it's like, what's the fucking point? Like, be honest with yourselves, lads. Like, you're going to work in finance. Like, just stop thinking you're going to be a creative. You just can't do it.
Where do you want to start? Because we sort of like laid out a few like topics, right? Before we eventually get to Burnley. One of them was the cost of watching football in the UK compared to the US.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That was mental.
Another one was about the sponsor, which probably ain't going to take too long. I saw some stuff about Enzo Fernandez, but that can kind of work into our Burnley stuff anyway. So, yeah, I think the first place to start is this because it was just a graphic from The Athletic. I believe they've done sort of a piece about it. And it's effectively, I'd go and find the graphic, but effectively the graphic breaks down the competition, the UK cost per month, and then the US cost per month. Now, it is worth, while we read these out, obviously, those UK listeners to us will note that there are some competitions that are packaged together, with one broadcaster. It's quite rare that you're paying just for one competition. So, you'll have bundles, right? But like TNT cover several of these, Sky cover several of these, Amazon. I think those are the big three in the UK. But it really does speak volumes. And I could attest to this in the short time I was in Australia, how much of a rip-off it really is.
I've just dropped the graphic in if you want to put it on the screen for people to look at, by the way.
Let's have a look at this. Let's do some broadcasting. Yeah, here we go. There it is.
It's right in the middle. Obviously, you have me and Dan move either side slightly, like just the other way. There you go. See, look, boom, broadcast magic.
You've got to go the other way.
What do you mean? I'm fine on my screen.
No. On my screen, you're blocked off. You can't. You gotta go to your right.
But then I'm not blocked off on my screen. I'm like, do you know what? Okay.
Top class presented here.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we go through it, Dan, right? If you rack up the price, Dan, I will sort of piece it all together in terms of how much it costs.
Okay.
Direct comparison.
So we start in the Premier League. It's £96 in the UK per month, compared to $10 in the UK in the US. Sorry, right. 39, just under £40 for Champions League in the UK per month. $7.99 in the US. Europa League, £30 compared to the same price, $7.99 in the US. FA Cup, £45 compared to $12.99 in America. MLS is actually the one time I think on this list where the UK is cheaper, $12.99 compared to $14.99 in America. La Liga, £22 compared to $12. Bundesliga, £67 compared to $12. Serie A, £19 compared to $7. League, £9 compared to $14. So actually, yeah, there's a discrepancy there.
I'm playing catch up. Go, carry on, go.
Then WSL, £64 in the UK compared to $12 in America. The NWSL is free in the UK compared to $29, like nearly $30 in America. The Women's Champions League is £20 in the UK, $7.99 in America, and then the US Women's League is, I mean, it doesn't even say free. I assume can you even watch it in the UK legally? Compared to $21 in United States. So there we go.
Right, so if I do the maths quickly, it's £427 roughly in the UK per month, based on that logic, right? In the States, it is, let's do it quickly now, 13, 15, 13, 13, 8, 15.
Just for the note for the listener, costs show what it takes. It says here on the graphic, the costs show what it takes to watch named competition on its broadcast partners. And yes, several subscriptions give access to multiple competitions. They also reference that for competitions shown on the BBC, the shown cost includes the license fee.
Okay.
One
thing I will say is it's it was $177 in the States versus £427 in the UK. Like, it's I do think, right, that one thing you said, by the way, the FA Cup. Soon as I saw the FA Cup on TNT, I thought that was a disgrace. Personally, I think the fact the FA Cup is behind a paywall is absolutely mental.
But it's been. I think the FA Cup has kind of been like that. I mean, unless you're saying TNT, it was also BT, right? BT had it for a while, if I remember. There was definitely a period when BT Sport had it as well.
Yeah.
Sky, I remember way back, Sky having the FA Cup. It did go for a period. Yeah. Maybe even ESPN had it when they were around for a little bit. There was definitely a period when it was just the BBC and ITV more recently, but I guess in the ITV, I think it's free now, isn't it? BBC, ITV, and TNT have a selection of games, because I swear ITV even pick up some League Cup games now. But yeah, at least one and a few of the games are going to be behind a paywall each year.
Yeah, but it's the big ones I've noticed as well. The big ones are going to be the ones that are going behind the paywall. Then realistically, the big ones have been the ones that have been on terrestrial television in the UK. Like that for me, I'm like, okay, like I get there's the odd game behind the paywall. Like I remember watching us draw with Brentford at Griffin Park on BT. Now, I remember watching that because that was when we first got a dish. And well, we didn't get a dish, but we had a like BT box or a box house. That was when we first got it. That was when we first found it, and I still thought that was odd. The FA Cup as a product is something which, if you think about what the premise is behind it, right, it's that any team from the God knows how many preliminary rounds there are in August, all the way through to May, they could technically go all the way. You could have Joe Bloggs and his team from bloody Leamington Spa playing in a rubbish league go all the way to Wembley. And I think the fact that it's now being put more behind a paywall, so you're right, games are still being picked up, right, but they're being put more and more behind a paywall, and then companies moan that people are getting dodgy sticks and dodgy boxes.
See that was, I saw the Athletic, and I don't know if this is like multiple pieces they've done over this international break in this kind of research, but I did find it puzzling when I read a headline about illegal streaming, and if that piece doesn't reference at all the broadcast and the money that people have to pay to cover multiple subscriptions, and also just the problem that the broadcasters in this country have so much power over the scheduling of football games, to the detriment to the problems that it throws onto fans on a regular basis because of changing schedules and all of that. Yeah, I mean it's interesting to me. I don't know if this is entirely linked to this, but I was having a conversation. I think it was around the Wolves game because the Wolves. I don't understand why there are Saturday 8 p.m. kickoffs. Like it just makes no sense to me.
Mental.
But we're
Ridiculous.
already we're breaching that. In recent years, we breached a Christmas Eve game. We breached we're getting 8:15 games now. There might be one for Chelsea in a couple of weeks or not, but we're definitely, that is kind of a regular thing now, 8:15 Premier League games.
There's only one game on Boxing Day this year as well.
Only one game. And my worry is that because fans are going to be in opposition to games being taken abroad, like we saw with La Liga, which luckily has been reversed, the Barcelona Villarreal game, or Como AC Milan in Perth, I think in February, because fans will reject that over here, and they should reject that over here. The way broadcasters or the clubs are going to try and get around it is to push kickoff times to even later to help other markets. So I mean, I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility in a couple of years' time we're hitting 9 p.m. kickoff times in the UK,
which are fairly commonplace in other leagues.
Yeah,
I will
yeah,
say.
in Europe
But
that's pretty common.
But do you know why it's common in Europe? It's because if you take Spain and Italy as examples, right, that's when the average nightlife starts.
Yeah,
People are having a dinner.
Thing,
yeah, exactly. It's a cultural thing where dinners are happening that time of the evening because people are having siestas in the middle of the day, and they're taking longer lunches and they're far more relaxed. There's certain elements of it where it's like, well, it's a cultural thing. Here, it's just going to piss people off because if you have a 9 o'clock kickoff, you're not going to finish until 10 or something ridiculous, or maybe even 11:15. You've then got to rush back. For my case, if I'm going back to Tunbridge Wells, the last train, which is the slow train, by the way, which makes a 50 minute journey an hour and 45 sometimes, right? That's midnight. So then they're not going to put on more trains for the sake of football fans. They just won't do it. So it's even though the current head of state in terms of our prime minister, is a massive football fan, a massive Arsenal fan. His dad was a toolmaker and his mum was a nurse, if you didn't know. So it's very much a case of what are they going to do to support that? They're not, because they can't financially. Because if trains are going to become more state run, which is what they're pushing towards, and state owned, they're not going to have the finances to be able to get people on the trains. If they do, and the trains, which are still extortionately priced as well, are going to have that impact as well. If I take the Liverpool game as an example, despite it being an amazing result, right? There was, because TfL seem to love doing this, there was no district line from Fulham Broadway. Or if there is a district line running to Fulham Broadway, if you're coming into Chelsea, it's always the fourth one. They'll have another one come about 10 minutes, right, to stagger people going to games. So they don't have the regularity of trains anyway. So then you're going to have to fight through crowds to try and get home to get to where you need to go, because not everybody lives in London, and not everybody who's coming from games to games, by the way, who doesn't live in London, might have come from abroad. They're not going to be, they might not be close by. So they've still got to get back to where they need to go. There's only a small selection of TfL lines that run 24 hours on a weekend. So it's kind of a case of like this whole situation. It's just the more power you give to broadcasters, who then proceed to moan because there's not a great atmosphere at games or it's not great to watch, they're actually killing what makes football so good. I feel like we are going to be the last generation really who got to experience, the regular match goers and the people that really build the culture, and sort of being able to see them every week and appreciate those people and what they bring to the stadiums. I always think about where I sit in the Matthew Hayden Lower. You've got Dave Johnston, obviously, CFC UK. He sits by me as well, and obviously where I sit, right on the corner flag, that's where the tifos start to come across. And you've got all the lads from We're the Head who sit around there as well, and obviously all the work that they've been doing in the shed end and on European nights to try and get things going again. And that it all feels very sanitized. I feel that's why more and more people are getting more and more drawn to non-league football. There are guys that used to sit by me. There are older guys, and even their kids who are maybe a little bit older than me, right? There's one guy I sit next to who his dad now goes to Eastbourne games home and away because Chelsea just isn't viable for him anymore. And he's now there going, to be honest, I like going to watch. He goes to watch Eastbourne as well. I think it was Maidenhead actually. So that sort of stuff. And then I went to watch Tunbridge Angels for it was 18 quid for a ticket, by the way. That was mental, but still. I went to watch Tunbridge Angels, which was cheaper than going to watch Chelsea. And I enjoyed it, but it's not going to stop me going to Chelsea. I love going to Chelsea still because I think for me it's the social thing. But that is slowly sort of falling away. And I think things that worry people, like especially season ticket holders. I mean, my dad's been a season ticket holder since 1970 something, right? He's had a season ticket for years, and he's sat there going, "Well, he's open to moving. He wants to move if the opportunity's right." As I think we've stated so many times, but it's that sort of thing where it's like, I know this is kind of going into a bit of a tangent here, but it's kind of a case of the pricing of football is now becoming so ludicrous that it's not becoming something, where they say we value the fans and you talk about the 12th man and all this sort of stuff. I don't feel valued as a football fan anymore. And I haven't for a very long time. And I think even that is stemming across now into people who pay for their TV packages. But we share our TV package with my cousin. He's got the Sky. We've got the TNT. We split that. So here's our TNT logins. We have his Sky logins and that. So we split everything. And it's stuff up. But then when they go, oh, these dodgy boxes, oh, why have people got these? Oh, well, we're going to crack down on this. Why are you cracking down on the people to do that in a cost of living crisis when the reality is all the broadcasting companies continue to push their pricing up, which is then pricing people out, which will mean that people are going to go to those dodgy boxes. If you're pricing people out in the stands and on their sofa, do you know how mental that is? That's ridiculous.
Well, it's one of the counters I have when people say that, the online crowd, about Chelsea atmosphere, right? People moan about atmosphere, and they say the thing that will solve all of this is a new shiny stadium. And I think the naive thinking, I mean, some of it is just, we always say this, right? I'll call it out, bad faith, right? People, they actually don't care about the atmosphere at all. They don't care about the betterment.
We want names. Sorry,
but the thing about a new stadium is that we all know what that new stadium would be in the eyes of Clear Lake, right? Or the eyes of a lot of ownerships, because we've already seen it with other clubs as well. They would want the new stadium, the added seating inside Stamford Bridge would, I bet pretty confidently a majority of that new seating would just be used to further create hospitality.
Yeah.
Further create more revenue streams for a higher caliber or higher income, clientele, if you want to put it like that. Like we've seen a dugout, they call it the dugout club at Chelsea. All these big clubs have their own version of it, right?
That is mental.
The new bundle that got released recently, where you can get on a flight with the academy, apparently to some European games for like $7,000.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, there
what?
Was massive. It wasn't just that. It was like a bundle of several things. So it was like you would take the same flight, because obviously the youth team plays their UEFA Youth League game in the same place that Chelsea, the first team, would be playing. So I think it was like a combination of things, right? But that's where it's heading, right? Like this kind of exclusive luxury football experience. Like that's what a lot of this is being marketed towards. So I just sit here and go, like, if you want a new stadium and you think that that's going to be the solution to the atmosphere problems, the likelihood is the people that are going to make that atmosphere better are going to be further priced out, because that new stadium is not going to be built for those people in mind. It's going to be built for, corporate hospitality. And that's just the reality, right? Like of it. So yeah, it's a depressing situation.
It is one thing I will say though about one new stadium, which apparently to say it, but Spurs with that large one-tier stand, that is one thing where you can tell they have thought about fans and the atmosphere, which is fair enough, right? But the reality is, like, I don't think people would think like this. I think, well, people look at Spurs as an example in terms of stadium. So I think that's where you look at it. But you were absolutely right, where people are going to be priced out. I also think it's where, if you think about the what we talk about, social aspect and the small pockets of people. So obviously, Harry sits a little bit further down than me. Obviously, I've got the guys which sit around my dad. So my dad's like, I sit, me and him share a season ticket, and there was a geezer who used to sit to his left. That was a season ticket seat. That's now gone. It's just a random person. The other side of him is just a random person. You've then got small pockets of people who sit in or sit around us. There's a lady called Sandra who's been going since the 1950s, I think. So she sits right by us with her son. You've then got a guy called Bob, who I know listens to the pod, by the way. Hi, Bob. Who basically he comes all the way down from Newcastle way to come watch Chelsea every home game. You've got Steve who sits next to him. You've got the guy I was talking about, his dad goes to Eastbourne games. You've got my friend Tom as well with him. You've got Carl and Kurt, for example, are two people that sit near me, that have always looked after me and all that sort of stuff ever since I was a kid. We go into games, right? But that whole block I can talk about, just block 15 on its own, Matthew Harding, people there. And this new stadium, I think it would be a case of you rip that all up, which is what you saw at Spurs, which is what you saw at Arsenal. You had to completely rebuild. And like you're saying, if you're going to have to completely rebuild, but fans are going to be priced out, they're then also going to be priced out on their sofas. You're then going to have a stadium which is going to be vastly used for corporate hospitality. And I know we've brought this to Chelsea by talking about the stadium, right? And I know it's probably something where it kind of all ties in. Obviously, we've got to talk about the general pricing of football. You pull that all together, and then you're going to have more of a problem, because if you, like you said, the corporate seating, Wembley is a great example of corporate seating, right? Wembley's an 80,000 seater stadium, right? 87,000. I think 37,000 of that is corporate.
Yeah.
So realistically, if you're gonna put that down to Chelsea and Stamford Bridge, you're not going to get more seats for people to sit in. You're not. You're looking at 65,000 capacities, which I think they were talking about, wasn't it? Right. So it's an extra 18,000 seats for Chelsea. That's probably going to be 18,000 seats of corporate hospitality. If not, about probably 50-60% of that will be.
Yeah. There's no feasible way they extend, redevelop, new stadium, whatever it ends up being in the future for Chelsea, without a majority of it focused on ways to make money. So that's just the harsh reality. I do want to, before we get to specifically the Burnley game, I think it's good to sort of, because obviously the international break, this is the last one till March, so we kind of it's the last kind of natural pause in the season. And I think maybe it's a good time to look ahead to the festive period, because it's such a crucial period of the season, a block of games. I don't know if you think it's fair. I mean, I've kind of categorized at least 9 or 10 games as a point. I've sort of gone up to just before Christmas, because once you go, so Burnley, Barcelona, Arsenal, Leeds, Bournemouth, Atalanta, Everton, Cardiff, and Newcastle. Newcastle is the weekend, is this Saturday, I believe it. Yeah, Saturday the 20th of December. So it's the last one before Christmas. So I sort of thought, and there's no Boxing Day game for Chelsea this year. The next one after that is the 27th against Aston Villa. So I thought maybe that's a substantial enough block of games to look at. A mixture of Premier League, Champions League, and League Cup, obviously quarter-final against Cardiff. So, I mean, I've seen debate around this, specifically the first week coming back is like, oh, Barcelona and Arsenal. And everyone's like, Barcelona and Arsenal, Barcelona and Arsenal. I know why people are looking at that. But for me, Burnley away is the most concerned I am out of those three games. It's the one that I think it should be taken the most seriously. But I guess, yeah, where do you want to start? Do you want to take a broader view, or because obviously we will specifically after this, we'll jump specifically into the Burnley game. But I always think this is such a key part of the season because it it always kind of, for me, defines, maybe not actually, last year was kind of a little bit different in the sense that we went into Christmas with a really good feeling, and then actually things started to go wrong from Boxing Day effectively. And it definitely is a defining part of the year, no doubt, that this block we're about to go into.
Absolutely. I think if you look at it, right, and you analyse it, I agree. I get why you're saying what you are about Burnley. It's the early kickoff. It's the first game back in the Premier League for all teams on Saturday. And it's away at Burnley, who can be tough. I mean, we break them down quite easily in the past. But this Burnley side seems to have a little bit more about them in comparison to what we usually see. It's one thing I will say. I think if you look at that, Barcelona is the one I'm actually the least worried about. Barcelona, out of the rest of November, Barcelona, I actually think we can go toe-to-toe with and have a good game because of how they play their football. They play with the high line. They want to be on the front foot all the time. If you want to be on the front foot and be a player with the high line all the time, great. You do that because that plays right into the hands of how we like to play our football. Arsenal, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've already written it off, being very, very honest. December, I think, is interesting because there is a real significant chance, in my opinion, that we will really struggle, and I'm not sure I think we'll beat Leeds. By the way, speaking of what we were saying with fixtures earlier, 8:15 on a Wednesday, Leeds away. How you get home from Leeds? Here's the answer: you won't. Bournemouth away, Atalanta will be an interesting one because they've just switched their manager. Everton at home. Everton are always tough. I don't know why. They just always are for us. Cardiff away, I'm actually a little bit intrigued by. But we'll go past the League Cup because as much as you want to be in that, okay, I'm kind of going, well, let's look at what the other stuff is saying. Newcastle away on my birthday, I can't see us picking up any points. I can't see us getting any points there. Villa.
That's also a 12:30, if I remember rightly. That's also an early kickoff, which we always seem to have at Newcastle.
Yeah, so that's got the real opportunity to completely ruin my birthday because that is my birthday. And I am significantly worried that we're going to get absolutely shafted by Newcastle. And then the pub crawl that I've planned is going to be ruined. We've then got Villa on the 27th and then Bournemouth again on the 30th of December. Bournemouth at home, I think, will win. Villa at home, I think, is going to be an interesting one. It depends on what they're looking like coming out of the international break. Out of back end of Christmas, because I think there's going to be got a funny feeling that a lot of teams are going to be quite weary there. Because if you look at it, we've got a game on average every 3 days. Yeah, it quite literally is. We have. This is going to be a tough period. Chelsea have a game every 3 or 4 days. And do you know what we'll include from now? This period, every 3 or 4 days, Chelsea have a game. Yeah. So how they're going to manage that, I think, is going to be a very, very interesting case. I think that Maresca and his juggling and chopping and changing of the squad, maybe he was doing that to prepare for this period.
Yeah, I think this was did we touch on this? And I think we did actually before Wolves, right? Like the whole rotation debate, and everyone made such a big thing like rotation. It's like, no, he has to rotate. It's about who you rotate. It's not rotation. It's about, do you rotate? And I was recently speaking to someone who played professionally at a high level, and he was making the point that there are certain players you have to rotate, but because he played as a centre backs you don't actually need to rotate that much. They're not taking up as many miles on the legs as your central midfielder or your fullbacks or your wingers or your striker, right? Like, they are players a bit like goalkeeper, right? Like, they to do those 3 players, the 2 centre backs, or you play 3 centre backs, so they need to be rotated every 3 to 4 days, maybe not compared to other players. So there's a bit of nuance there. I don't know. I think for me, like the objective for Chelsea from a Premier League point of view, and it's something that we said specifically at the start of the year, and it's the main objective, right? I actually think when you look at where we sit right now, I actually think Chelsea are in a really good place. Just if you look at the Premier League table, when you factor in everything that's happened so far this year, the fact that we're only 6 points behind the leaders is a pretty good place to be. You know, even if we draw against Arsenal and that gap remains at 6 points, I still think that's a good thing. If Chelsea can exit this period of the season still being under 10 points away from Arsenal, which we assume, or Man City, right? Man City, whoever finishes top at the end of this period, right? If Chelsea can remain in touching distance, I think that's a good return. I think that's a really good return for Chelsea, because it's usually at this stage of the season where that gap goes from like 6 or 7 points to 20, and we never recover it. And I think that's for me the big thing. But it's a huge question for me with Maresca as well. When I look at, so if you break down these games into blocks, right, you have some big contests that I think in some ways kind of, it sounds like a really lazy pundit cliche, but I do think when I just look at the evidence of Chelsea, stylistically, as you brought up with Barcelona and for other reasons, they seem to take care of themselves. Barcelona at home, Arsenal at home, even Newcastle away, maybe you could throw in this batch. It's
Arsenal
Burnley.
at home, really?
Yeah,
See,
well, I think Arsenal at home is well, it's a big game. I think Arsenal is different because of their style. They are different. They are not. Arsenal are not going to come to the Bridge and do what Liverpool did. They're not. Yeah, stylistically, I think that's an interesting question. But in terms of like the psychology of that game, the psychology of that game is going to be more in line with Liverpool and Spurs than it is Burnley. Like that's just, everyone knows that's a huge game. And we actually played well against Arsenal, if I remember rightly, at home last year. I know it was a draw. We played all right against them. Like, I can't remember. I know I distinctly remember away from home we were dreadful against them. And that was a really bad run. But what has concerned me so far this year is Burnley away Saturday 12:30. He makes a bunch of weird choices in his starting lineup with the idea of looking at Barcelona and Arsenal. And we waste 45 minutes and we risk putting ourselves in a position we have been several times this year where we're chasing our tail in a game. I look at distinctly the Forest game, which was a 12:30 after the last international break away from home, where we could have been 3-0 down at half time. And I think that is the thing for me that is going to be so key for Chelsea is if, against Wolves, I think we limited them to basically nothing in front of our goal. And it was just a case in that second half of ramping up our intensity and quality in the final third. I think that's going to be the key thing. I guess the positive, right, is that Palmer could be back for this run, which is huge, right? Him and Estevao on the same pitch. I mean, if Estevao starts, that is.
I don't know how likely. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. That's mental, by the way. That we haven't even questioned that. I've been hearing that I don't know if Palmer is going to be ready. Realistically, I look at it and I think, would I want to risk him at Burnley when we don't know if he's still 100%? I mentally, right? I don't think that it's necessary to even have him ready for Barcelona. Obviously, I think you want him against Barcelona, don't get me wrong. But you look at it and I go, do you know what? I trust Estevao. I think Estevao's ready. He's proven that. And I think, I know it's another player where it's a young lad where we're putting a lot of pressure on him when we said we wouldn't do that. But he looks ready to shoulder that pressure. And I think that's different. If you're 16, 17, 18, like if you're like Wayne Rooney, which is honestly, like I put Estevao in that bracket, and there's very few players I have put in that bracket. Rooney at 16, 17 was ready to carry the burden. He was ready. Estevao's 18 and ready to shoulder that burden. Cole Palmer's in his early 20s and ready to shoulder that burden. Because it doesn't feel like a burden to him. It feels like an opportunity.
No.
And I think that's the biggest problem I have, like you're saying, in terms of this run, will be Enzo Maresca's analysis of each game and how he adapts. Because a lot of the time, I feel his selections almost are a bit of a burden on him, where he's basically gone, right, okay, I need to think like this and do this. This is hard. This is too much here. This is happening here. This is happening here. Blah 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 blah. And people say he very much is a Pep disciple because he does weird shit, right? He does weird shit in a team.
He does have a tendency to put like one. It feels like almost every game he'll throw one wild selection in.
Yeah.
And sometimes that wild selection makes sense in the end. Like you look at it and go, okay, fair enough, that's worked. There are also, I think, I'd have to sort of look at each game, but I think there are equal ones where it just hasn't worked and he's had to rectify it in a game.
Just defensive midfield that he always loves. That's what I never.
Yeah, I think that's the one to me that always stands out. It's like, did you really need to do that in that game? No. Like, I understand it for some games, I just don't understand it for others. I think, moving on to Burnley, I mean, I think that for me is the big thing of like, we're obviously recording this a little bit earlier this week, so we don't have Enzo Maresca's press conference, so we can't say for certain whether players are in or out. But I think that there is sometimes just kind of doing the obvious, and I think that's sometimes one of my frustrations is like, sometimes the easiest and obvious answer is the right one. And I just worry Burnley, we're going to see like 10 changes. And
we're absolutely going to see 10 changes. Let's just call a spade a spade. We are going to see 10 changes. It's going to happen. Like it's like, I know we're sitting there and we're saying, oh, well, he's not going to do that, surely, is he? Like, he seems Enzo Maresca, right? It's really, really odd. Because when we do our logical selection, he does something which is completely against the grain. When we think he's going to go completely against the grain, he does what was a logical selection. So you kind of look at it, it's like you try and have to balance it and go, okay, what's he done the previous in these situations? The international break suggests that he's going to make a load of changes to look forward to Barcelona and to Arsenal, right?
Yeah.
So if he's doing that, you then look at the team, and I feel like this is a great opportunity for us to go into the Echo 11. I mean, I don't even know.
No, I think after these international breaks, sometimes it is a little bit like now, because there's so much focus on, and that's my concern. It seems like everyone's just looking past Saturday.
Yeah.
Like everyone's just like, oh, Barcelona, oh, Arsenal. And I'm like, no, there is quite an important game on Saturday that we need to deal with. I mean, surely Rob Sanchez hasn't been on international duty. He should be starting this game. He's kept, in the last 2 Premier League games, he's kept 2 clean sheets. I think even aerially, he's been a bit better recently in a game of this nature. I think that's obviously important. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, what's the reason not starting Reece James? Like, that's the weird thing for me as well. Maresca went out publicly and said Reece can play 3 games in a week now. And then he didn't play him in 3 games. Well, he brought him off the bench against Wolves. But it's like, and for me, he made the wrong calculation. I wouldn't have started Reece against Karabakh. But I wouldn't have done it. I think actually the other way around. But I think that Reece should be starting this game. Right back, I think that Fofana and Trev look like a decent partnership at the moment. If you keep on playing them, I'm not against playing Josh. If you want to rotate and bring in, I'd keep Josh and Trev if you're going to do the back 2 there, because I think those 2 can work quite well. Mm-hmm. But you kind of worry that, Badiashile could be ready after this, right? And Badiashile played well, but is he going to throw a wild Tosin in there? Like that's my worry as well. Is like he'll throw a wild Tosin Hato centre back combination here and throw us all off, and then he has to rectify it, or the team, and he did that against Karabakh and it didn't work out. Will he rest Cucurella? I think that for me, like, maybe there's some disagreement. And Fernandes I think Fernandes at the moment is a bit of a doubt, whether because he picked up an injury. He didn't go on international duty and he picked up an injury. So I understand, listen, you don't want to risk players, as was the same with Palmer, right? Like, if Palmer's not there yet, there's no point rushing him back. However, I think there's a balance between rushing people back but then also like play your strongest team first, and then hopefully you can rest people because you've got a lead in the game. I'd rather do that than put some wacky team out there, we suddenly have to scrap and make up for our errors. And then you're throwing on players late in kind of a dramatic way. Like I think Brentford and Forest have been 2 games post the previous 2 international breaks where I've seen that. And I know one of them ended in quite comfortable victory in the end, but it could have ended disastrously. The other one against Brentford was not exactly a great performance, was it?
No. But this is where you think when you look at the team playing, right? I think you just need to look at what you're up against. I think the beauty of this Chelsea team is, despite the fact that there is still a lot of work to be done with experience and logic in terms of how they handle games, I do think that there's a lot of options. So when you're coming up against the Burnley, who is an extremely physical side, I think that Scott Parker has slowly started to, I think he's done a very good job there, by the way, as well. Obviously, I know I'm very good friends with Visa, as we call him on the internet, and he was talking about how he feels that this season is probably the first season in a long time where he feels like there's an opportunity to fight, and they're not just going to go straight back down purely because of how Scott Parker set the team up in the Championship. I mean, this side conceded ridiculously low amount of goals in the Championship. They were boring to watch, but they got the job done. And I think that's something which needs to his credit, which is kind of slowly brought back into the Premier League. Yes, they can see more goals because the quality of the league is better, but they're still tougher to break down. And in terms of the physical battle that teams have had with them, it's been tougher. I think obviously Big Les is playing for them as well. He's a great example. He almost plays as a number 10 for them, which just kind of lays out the physicality of, the sort of players that they've got to deal with. So with that in mind, like Rob Sanchez in goal. I mean, for me, Reece James would start. Cucurella would start. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'd start Wesley Fofana because I think in terms of physical battle, he can keep up with it. And I'd start Trev. That'd be my back four, and then the midfield. Enzo Fernandez. I saw Simon Johnson did a piece. I believe it was Simon Johnson. Yes, it was. Speaking of, just come up on My Athletic. Whereas how crucial Enzo Fernandez has been for Chelsea over the past sort of 2 years. He's made. But here you go. 221 appearances for club, including Benfica and Chelsea and country. And he's in his early 20s. He is a player who is so important to this team. He's missed two. He has missed just 2 of 52 matches Chelsea have played across 6 competitions in this calendar year through injury. That's how crucial he is to this team. So it's evident that he's one of the first names on the team sheet. So if he's fit, you go him, you go Caicedo, you then go. I mean, realistically, it's where I think the wild card will be thrown in. I think Bonanotte will start in the number 10 because why not? I'm thinking just Maresca. What do I do? I'll start Bonanotte. Why? Don't know. Okay, fair enough. So I'm going to do that. Left-hand side, I think Garnacho will start. Right-hand side, it will be Pedro Neto, but it should be Steve. He was Brazil's best player on international duty. Can we just fathom that? This is someone who people talk about as the heir to Neymar. He's that good. He's that good. He needs to start for Chelsea. And I'm kind of looking at just he every game, Arsenal, Barcelona, Burnley, all 3 for the rest of November. I'm going, just start him. He's ready. He can play. Let him play. This whole, I think this is where the burden comes in, and it's the wrapping in cotton wool and all that sort of stuff. I can't wrap my head around it at all.
I understand it to an extent, but there is a point where he's adapted, he's adjusted quickly, and the evidence in front of you is showing you that he impacts games at a very rapid rate, even if he doesn't start games. He literally, the first thing he did against Wolves was set up the second goal. That's literally the first thing he did. So yeah, it for me, it's just, again, make the easy option. You can then hopefully take him off earlier if you're starting him against Barcelona and then against Arsenal. I would start João Pedro in the 10. He has 2 goals in his last 2 Premier League games, and I'd start Garnacho. I think, if you look at his stats in recent games, he was man of the match against Wolves. And then I think you'd still start Delap up top. Like, I think Delap still needs match fitness. Like, he still looks good, but he needs to get that match fitness up. So I'd start him as well. Like that's the obvious team. And the only exception being if Fernandes ain't ready, then the only other option you have really is Andre Santos, or he moves Reece into central midfield and plays Malo Gusto at right back, which I'm not completely against because factor in someone's injured. But my worry is that that's not going to be the team. That it's going to be, Jarell Hato at centre back. We're going to see Malo Gusto in central midfield.
But that's why I put Buonanotte in the 10 for the sake of balance.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of balance, yeah. Wild Buonanotte hopefully has done enough to wave off any other wild selections. But yeah, I just hope that we do the obvious, because I think if we do, we put ourselves in a good position, and it's also about momentum, right? But in some ways, this Chelsea team is it seems like sometimes a little bit allergic to logical momentum, because they can play really well in certain games, and in other games, it seems like the big win that's just happened doesn't factor into what happens in the next game. So I hope we take it seriously enough. I'm not saying we go out there and we batter Burnley. Like it's a right for us to go out there and stroll to a 3-0 victory. I think it will be challenging, but I think the thing that frustrates me is when I feel like Chelsea are not prepared for a game, and have the selections have done things that have kind of weakened our position when we kind of didn't need to. I think that's the thing that always frustrates me, is like, you didn't have to make these choices, you did, and now you have it. And then when you actually have to act from the bench to make up for your own errors, it's like we've just wasted 45 minutes here, and I just don't want to see that on Saturday.
Yeah, and but that is, I think, realistically what is going to happen. Let's call a spade a spade. And I say this right in the hope that it doesn't happen. I'm trying to use reverse psychology on myself. That's where I'm at right now. I'm kind of going, okay, well, if he does this, he won't do this, which means that if it does happen, I'm not going to be surprised. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to be pleasantly surprised, hands in the air, like that, having a great time. We love it. Superb. And then, we can just crack on with the weekend.
Sounds good. I think that's about it, isn't it?
It is indeed. So should we go through the 11 quickly? We agreed on 11. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to go for Sanchez in goal, Cucurella left back, Reece James right back. We're going to go the fact we think Fernandes is fit. That's why he's a right back. We're going to go for Trev and Fofana at centre half. Fernandes, Caicedo. We put the wild Buonanotte in there.
You can put the wild Buonanotte in there if you want.
Put the wild card of Buonanotte in the number 10. Left-hand side is Garnacho. Right-hand side, Steve. Has to be Steve. And up front, we're going with Liam Delap, son of Rory. But that is your Echo 11. That has been your preview for Chelsea versus Burnley, and a return to action after the international break. Dan and I will be back in action in a couple of days' time, purely because we're going to have to be, because it's going to be a mental Christmas. We're going to be enjoying it, though. Hopefully, Dan, as well, we might be changing up the environments for those couple of those. Is that what we're thinking? Give a little go. Well, we'll let you guys know. If it looks different, you'll know what's going on. All right? That's all we're going to say to that. But I have been Louis.
I've been Dan.
This has been the Chelsea Echo. Give us a 5-star review if you're listening. And if you're not, make sure you sub on YouTube. And we'll see you for the next one.